Well, I know uptalk, upspeak, uptalk I think is what it is. When you say something at the end of the sentence, your voice goes up. It comes across as rather powerless. I think using the word sorry, which is a word that I use constantly, when I need to ask for clarification, I say sorry. I apologize to tables. I apologize to a number of things. I think that I've really had to work at letting go of that word and trying to come across as just, I'm not sorry. I just need to ask for clarification, so say what it is that I mean. I think can come across as a lot more powerful. I think sounding, when you're unsure of what it is that you're going to be interpreting and speaking rather quiet, that in itself comes across as very powerless, I think. And it could be exactly what is being said, but you've just given the persona of that deaf person as very meek and powerless. So I think coming across, if they are, that's wonderful. But if they're not, if they're very powerful, very self-confident deaf person, they need to have the voice come across that way to indicate that. So I think those are some things. I think word choices are, it really depends. If you've been raised and conditioned to speak in a powerless way, then when you're interpreting, you need to be aware of that and be reflective to realize that some of the word choices I have may be rather powerless, may be very powerful. And what we need to do is have a balance between the two to make sure that we're getting the same message across. I think there are probably some powerful and powerless signs in ASL that are used too. So how, and I don't think a lot of people may realize that because, well, we need to just be able to identify and examine it so then we know when we need to be powerful we are and when the message is powerless that's coming across.
An example of powerful and powerless language. When I think of powerless language, I think of the way that I used to speak most of the time. There was a situation where Teresa Smith of Seattle, Washington, approached me after I had been presiding at a meeting and said to me, Jan, you know, you're doing a really good job, but stop apologizing for yourself. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And as I probed for her meaning, she said, well, every other time you open your mouth, you say, well, I might not know what I'm talking about, but I think blah, blah, blah. Or, well, in my opinion, this is perhaps, or, well, that's my idea. I mean, I don't know what others of you might think. She said, you totally negate the validity and credibility of whatever it is you're saying because you keep apologizing for what you're saying. I'd never, ever thought about that. And so will always be indebted to Teresa for the courage that it took and for the fact that she cared enough to even say anything to me to bring that to my attention. So I am always looking at my language and encouraging interpreters to look at their language in terms of, am I truly matching the degree of power or powerlessness in the utterances that are coming across? The place where I see interpreters fail to do that most often is when they're going from sign to spoken English, and they themselves are doubting whether or not they understood what was going on. The deaf person is signing and confident and strong, and I'm hearing a kind of a tentative interpretation that sort of is watered down. Wrong. You've not conveyed the intent or the goal or the personality of the original message, and it's because of who you are as the interpreter. So if somebody's being tentative and timid and uncertain, I have to match that. But if they're not, I have to be able to match the assertiveness. There's sometimes things that we use like English fillers. Yesterday I went to the store, and you hear those fillers and the corrections, the false starts. That's another example of powerless form of language. So that's how it affects us as interpreters in the act of interpretation. In our everyday lives, how we advocate for ourselves, we will be successful if we approach people with respectful, assertive, powerful language. And we will not get what we need if we go in and apologize. Well, I'm just the interpreter, you know, and it would really kind of help me if you could let me sit up here close to where you, forget it. You've already lost the battle because Your demeanor and your language shows that you don't even respect yourself, so why should they listen to your request?